Put your red shirt on and a brown coat too. Everybody's joining the crew. We got just one ring that we rule them all. Hope you'd remember your thoughts. Get your Ulu feathers and your needler guns. A sonic screwdriver or a sword plus one. Use Valerian steel if it will get you to come. To the big tank. To the big tank. The Rocky Mountain big tank.
Hi, I'm Guy,
Hi, I'm Troy.
Hi, I'm Alex.
and this is Geek Tank.
Your gratuitous violence for revenge size podcast.
Yep.
Just because. Just because John Wick. That's why. Just because.
Yeah,
We could have a number of them we could talk about that are like that.
It's the trope.
It is a trope.
roaring rampage of revenge. It is a trope. Yeah, while I was sick, I spent a few evenings. Actually, I think it was after I was sick. I spent a few evenings watching the John Wick films, one after the other each night. And I have to say that yeah, there's definitely roaring rampage of revenge. If you're unfamiliar with John Wick, the inciting incident is that John Wick's wife has died of natural causes, and
he goes and beats up all natural cause.
Yep, natural causes gets it from John Wick, but and she arranges that after she passes away, that basically she gives him a puppy. He runs afoul of some guys who see his nice car. They break into his house.
If anybody
beat him
hasn't
up.
seen it, Alex isn't saying anything that doesn't happen in like the first 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, the very first real action scene in John Wick occurs a good 30, maybe even 40 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
And so he maybe 20, but anyway, so that's happens. They break into his house, they beat him up, they kill his dog, they steal his car, and the first time you really realize that something is amiss is that when they go to a chop shop to get like a new VIN number and like change the paint or whatever on it, the guy who runs the chop shop goes, "Where did you get this car?" And they're like, "We just stole it from some dumbass." And he's like, "Get the fuck out of my shop right now."
Yeah. Yes, John Leguizamo.
Yeah, and yeah, paraphrasing, "Get out of my shop. We own you, man." Slappy, slappy punch, get out. And then when the rich punk, criminal punk's father, crime lord, calls out John Leguizamo's character and goes, "Why did you slap around my son in front of his friends like that?" He said, "Your son stole John Wick's car." And he's like, "Oh,
Okay.
oh, okay."
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like, oh, yes, my son done fucked up.
Yes.
And yes, then the roaring rampage of revenge occurs from there. The second movie, for lack of a better term or a shorter, a longer phrase, is that he of course doesn't get his dog to come back, but he gets another dog at the end of the first movie. In the second movie, he still hasn't gotten his car back. And then the third movie and the fourth movie are kind of natural consequences of, or at least a way that consequences could go on from that inciting incident and what
And
happens thereafter.
they're pretty much play like one long movie because it's all connected as a story.
They are very connected as a story. It's not like a lot of time takes place or like and then John Wick was satisfied. John Wick 4, John Wick decides to go to the moon or whatever. I have to say that as much as the films technically got better the farther they went along, as far as lighting, pacing, shot design, etc., I like the first two better. If I had to choose if just one of them, I'd say the first one. My least favorite of the bunch was 3. Unfortunately, because people want things to escalate and get bigger and badder and blah blah blah. To me, the third movie and the fourth movie get far too cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the first movie, I saw somewhere online someone had done the calculations, and John Wick expends out of all the bullets he fires, and he doesn't hit every time he fires. Out of all the shots he fires, like there's an average of 2.5 bullets per bad guy. Sometimes it's one, many times it's one, sometimes it's two, sometimes it's way more than that, but it kind of averages to 2.5. By the time you get to movies 3 and 4, it gets dumb. And I know that action movie, bullet sponges, all that, but it's like one of the things I really enjoyed about the first John Wick, especially, is that they make him out to be this like as it like in the thing. Oh gosh, you killed John Wick. You stole his car and beat him up in his house.
Mhm.
Backing away slowly, backing away slowly. And yeah, they basically they're like, he is such a badass. Not only is he just great at killing people, which he is, but he's like Determinator is another trope. Like he can't be stopped. He always finds a way to come through at the end. And the more that the more the movies went on, the more it seemed to be more like just bullet sponge time for him and for the bad guys. I actually kind of like the fact that in the first movie it was such a low shots fired, because it's like stuff misses, but then like when someone gets shot, it's like, wow, that's real. That really messes them up. Okay, now they're dead. And or like there's lots of unarmed fighting sequences as well, and like those get more and more cartoonish, just how much punishment people are taking.
Mhm.
And I actually would have probably preferred it if it was sort of like John Wick, if it took place over a longer timeline, so that way John Wick could have time to recover between action sequences, a little bit like, as far as storyline goes, but also like it gets to the point. It's like by the time you get to movie 4, like John Wick is fighting other people who are just like him, and which makes him a lot less special.
Mhm.
Yeah. So my least favorite of the bunch was 3. The events of 4 kind of redeem it a little bit or elevate it a little bit, in my opinion. Enjoyable to watch, but it starts off action movie, though somewhat realistic in some ways, and just goes into cartoon action movie stuff. But though still enjoyable. I bought all 4 of them in a Blu-ray DVD box set for like $30. Can't complain.
Yeah.
Though I did think it was telling that there's director's commentaries for the movie 1 and movie 2. There are no director's commentaries for 3 and 4.
Different directors, I assume.
Same directors.
Huh.
Basically the same creative team is behind all 4 movies. So one way to interpret that, in the absence of any facts, is they weren't nearly as proud of what they had done, and or didn't think they had much to really say about it. And it's not like, for instance, like Quentin Tarantino and David Lynch famously do not do commentaries. And when asked why don't you do commentaries, both of their answers are basically, I'm an artist. Take what you will from the work.
This is kind of fair.
Yeah. And I know I can respect that position. And he's like, yeah, I get it. But no, John Wick was all right. I also wound up getting Across the Spider-Verse. I know it's on Netflix streaming right now, but the sound quality I really care about.
Mhm.
So I picked that up on Blu-ray. And I also picked up something that you don't see every day either. Netflix will sometimes do a DVD or Blu-ray release, something. Probably most famously Stranger Things, but they've done other Blu-ray releases here and there. They put out a Blu-ray release of Sandman Season 1. And right now I'm rewatching Sandman on my Blu-ray just to make sure it works. But after that, I will probably continue to watch Sandman on Netflix on the stream. So that way Netflix has the metric of this person has watched Sandman half a dozen times. And because I want them to keep making Sandman.
Yep, I agree.
So I don't know how true this is. It's coming off of a sci-fi web site, but apparently John Wick Chapter 4 is going to get a director's cut because there was an entire hour of film that they cut out that the director did not want to cut out. When it's already like almost 3 hours long.
It's almost a 3-hour long movie.
So the director's cut will be almost 4 hours long.
Like their credit sequences are very short. Like they're like 7 minutes long. And that the 4th movie, I always looked at the time signature when I first started up, and the 4th movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes.
That's a long
Honestly, I don't know if okay. So one of the things I like about John Wick, especially the first one, is that it does have that slow burn.
Sorry for that. Hi, Brent. Welcome to the show. We're talking about John Wick. Alex
Yeah.
has watched all 4 of them over the past week.
Yep, I have not watched them before. One thing I like about John Wick, the first film, is that it has that slow burn. It doesn't jump straight into action. Every other John Wick movie jumps straight into action.
Mhm.
And there are more and longer action sequences for each one.
My
in each
brother-
one as they progress. And I'm like,
My brother said this was related after Die Hard,
Mhm.
because I think Die Hard was the first one that really did this well. That was in the mainstream. My brother had said you can tell an action film is going to be a good film when the action isn't how the film starts, because
mm,
Die Hard goes a good 15-20 minutes before the crap hits the fan.
Right.
mhm.
So yeah, like John Wick 4, it goes a bit before you have to deal with the stuff. So
Yeah.
it means they're sure of the story, as opposed to ones who start with the action aren't sure of the story, so they're relying on all the action.
hmm Yeah. And so I also have heard rumors that there's supposed to be like they might be doing a John Wick 5. Like I think on at least one interview or one piece, the creative team said that they don't want to do just cash grabs, but they could easily see putting John Wick out to like a 9-movie series. And I kind of like where they ended it. I actually would have liked for them to end it just a little bit differently, but it was still pretty cool how they ended it.
Hmm.
And I have heard of the TV show. I've not watched it yet.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that in our pre-show hangout. I mentioned the TV show. It's called The Continental.
Mhm.
So it's focused around the Continental.
Yeah,
And
the
it's
hotel.
yeah, and I've forgotten the Ian McShane's character's name. Winston. So it's a young Winston. It's telling the story of his uprise.
Of his rise. Okay.
Yeah, and it was good. It was fun.
Okay. What is it on?
I think Peacock.
It is on Peacock. I don't have Peacock.
I don't have it anymore. I got it for 1 month just for the guys to watch Five Nights at Freddy's, and I was like, "Oh, hey, that's a John Wick show. I'll give it a watch." And before I don't have Peacock anymore.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. The people got killed.
Yeah, that always happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do like what's funny is that I had heard. I mean, John Wick comes highly reviewed, or I like many people I know like John Wick, and so I didn't have any problem at all going. You know what? I've got around to watching it. I'll drop $30 to watch all 4.
Mhm.
Cool, money well spent. I'll rewatch all of them at least once. I'll probably watch the first 2 multiple times. But it's like the but it's. What was I thinking about? John Wick, The Thing. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
But it's yeah. I mean, I talked about 5. I talked about doing 9. Yeah, it was all right. Oh, that was it. So I have heard people, and of course people run with things, and of course with some of the lighting choices that they made throughout the films, as well as their choice of actors to play certain roles, is that the John Wick is really a Matrix training program. Without a lot of fancy death or gravity defying things, but it's still
it's enough ridiculous's that it could be the Matrix.
Yeah, and I think that's cute. It could be, sure, but I'm a big fan of 100 Bullets, the comic book, and I don't think they'll ever get around to making 100 Bullets, and if they do, it'll be very difficult for them to do it justice. But John Wick and 100 Bullets share enough DNA that I was here for it. And there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, okay, that's not. I mean, obviously it's different names on things, but some of the background pieces and some of the ways that people fight and everything, I'm like, that's very 100 Bullets. I love 100 Bullets. This might be the closest I ever get to seeing something this high production value, 100 Bullets. I'm enjoying it.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Ugh.
Sounds
So
pretty cool.
Yeah, you haven't seen any of them, have you, Guy? Because
No, not really. Not yet.
It's not your bag, baby.
It's not my bag.
cool.
Yeah,
That's okay.
the thing that I loved the most about it is how they really brought in the close quarter combat stuff, which you don't see a lot of in films.
Yeah.
And before I'd seen the film, what got me interested in it was watching Keanu Reeves doing his training, going through the firing course, learning how to use guns and how to move properly. And I'm like, gosh, what a horrible life he has, having to get paid money to go do that.
Oh, I know, right? It's like rich and famous people get all sorts of opportunities we just don't have. We don't get. And like I remember seeing I forget who it was, like Bette Midler. She wound up like doing some part, and the part was like this country singer. So like she wound up like hanging out with like, I forget who off the top of my head, but like big names in female country and female rhythm and blues, and they gave her like one of their spare guitars, which is like a $10,000 guitar, and taught her how to play it. I'm like, wow. How would John Wick versus Hitman be in a death match?
Well, Hitman can read thoughts, so
can Hitman read thoughts? I never really played those games.
Oh, Hitman's the comic. I assume you're talking about the comic book Hitman.
No, I think he's talking about the video game series, which is much more popular.
Oh,
Agent something or other.
Right, Agent 40,
head, 47 or something.
47, not Agent 42, because then he'd be the answer to everything.
Yeah, but it's I think it would depend on what are the terms of the engagement? What's the arena?
Who's the director?
If you're just talking about like, you put John Wick and Hitman in a room and there's a gun between them, John Wick. If you have John Wick walking through his life and Hitman and Agent 47 gets to study him for 6 months, Agent 47.
He straps a bomb to the dog. Just blow him up when the dog gets close to him.
Well, that actually reminds me of a line from one of my favorite books by my favorite author, and it's like she's like, I don't know what I have to add to your revolutionary cause, and the person's like, are you fucking shitting me? You are the top student of the most dangerous man I've ever seen. If I was going to kill either one of you, it'd be with a bomb. It's like. So yeah, and like the way that she is telling it too, is like I never envisioned like, here's a bomb in your trunk of your car. It's like no, here's a B-52 bomber.
Carpet bomb the area.
It's like, promotion.
Yeah, I was just say we got a bot.
I'm not in.
It's a bot trying to sell more bots.
Right? I like the bot selling
bot
bots.
slavery.
I'll be right now.
Okay. Yeah. So I got some gingerbread cookies from IKEA, and I was noticing that this one looks like a suba.
Oh yeah.
It's a gingerbread suba.
Delicious. But not very protective.
No.
And, yeah. No, I'm trying to think what else we've been up to. I've been playing the Marvel Spider-Man game for like 2018. And it has a lot of speaking of DNA, it's got a bunch of it shows a lot of DNA, or is definitely a successor to like the Batman Arkham games, Arkham Asylum, City, and Arkham Knight. And what's funny though is that like in the Batman games, at least, whenever I was fighting people, it was always, punching and kicking and knee breaks and stuff like that. It's cool. It's a great game. Love it. But once in a while, you'd like hit somebody, and especially if it was like one of the ones where it's like it slows down for the dramatic last hit, and it like the guy's head might hit the wall and then slide to the ground, and like the way the ragdoll physics go, it looks like, oh, that dude's neck is broken. Oops. That happens once in a while. In the Spider-Man game, I am killing fools right and left on. And it's like I'm fighting some bad guys on this rooftop, and I'm gonna like totally punch and kick somebody, and they go flying off the rooftop, and it's like 30 stories up. Like, oh, that happened. And a couple times when I did that, I'm like, okay, maybe I can save them, but jumping off of the side of the building to try to web shooter them and do things. No, there is no option to save them. So I'm just your friendly neighborhood manslaughtering Spider-Man. And it's gotten to the point where Nova and I were just like, that guy's dead. Like Spider-Man grabs a trash can with his webs and swings it around his head a couple times and hits another dude in the head. That guy's dead. Kicking people off rooftops, dead. They throw a grenade at you, you throw it back at them, dead. Yes, but it makes sense for Deadpool to kill people,
Right.
in character. Absolutely makes sense. Deadpool kills people.
That's
Spider-Man,
what he does.
not so much.
Like the Punisher game, he kills people. That's what he does.
That's fine. Wolverine game kills people. But Spider-Man doing his lighthearted quips and everything, and it's like,
Dead,
dude. Like one of the guys, I kicked him off of a roof, and it wasn't so high, super high up, so I kind of moved the camera to kind of see what happened, and the dude fell 6 stories and then got hit by a car as he hit the ground, and it's like, oh my gosh.
That's wrong.
That narrative dissonance is good for a laugh sometimes.
That's fair. And somewhat twisted.
Yes. Yeah. We just if we'd realized it was going to happen so much, we might have started a count.
Right?
Just okay, Nova, make sure you write down how many people I accidentally kill in this scene.
Like have a death counter up at the right hand corner.
Ding, ding, ding.
Right. Tick, 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 tick. You throw everybody onto the train tracks and it just goes. So it's rattling up.
Yeah.
Yep. I started watching Blue-Eyed Samurai.
Ah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm actually really rather enjoying it. Was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying it, I guess.
How far are you into it? As I don't want to spoil. So how far are you?
I think I'm 5 episodes in.
Oh, okay, quite a ways.
Yeah, I'm in enough that I'm invested.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
And there's
I
not
know
that
the
many
secret
episodes
of the main character, and we are now moving along the infamous samurai path of we have lots of places to go and different things to do and
so many
stuff.
people to kill.
Yes, and then there were a lot of arrows. The last time I was there were a lot of arrows.
An episode.
I was just sitting there in my head counting the arrows and going, how many freaking archers are up there? I mean, because I'm sitting there imagining all these archers just back. I'm like empathizing with the archers.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Blue Eye Samurai for the most part. There's only a couple things I didn't like about it, and one of those, at least some of it is just continuity errors.
Yeah,
it's like there's one point where there's a character here, and they're fighting a character here, and this character cuts this other character's neck, and then when they show it, in the next shot, it's like the blood's coming from this direction.
Right.
I'm like, that's not how swords work.
Yep.
But
considering it is 3D, that's kind of strange that
somebody just wasn't paying attention to the angles and everything.
Yeah.
But it's no, I rather enjoyed it. It does run into a little bit of the action movie thing I was talking about with John Wick, where it's like this character takes way too much punishment, but it's still enjoyable.
And survives.
Yeah. It's like with John Wick, it gets cartoonish enough that I just started saying, "Quit hitting him. He's just filling up his POW meter. Right. He's gonna do a super move now."
Right. Well, and on the same token, we've been watching Monarch, and that's what. On the flip side, Monarch is funny or not funny. We've been duly impressed because they will introduce a continuity error and let it roll for 5 or 6 episodes, and then explain it in a really cool way.
Okay.
They'll do something where you're like, oh, they just did this so that they could, get this particular actor to play this part. And it doesn't quite fit. And it's not quite right, and you know what? They're just going to ask us to just nod and accept it. And then like 5 episodes later, they explain it, and you're like, oh, that works. Like that's well done.
They're just trying to bait people to complain about the show, and then a few episodes later, they
get it wrong.
we had a plan, you didn't know.
So I am unfamiliar with Monarch. What is this?
Monarch is it's a series effectively about a government agency whose job it is to track and watch Godzilla and other kaiju.
Oh, okay.
And it's very embedded in the lore of Godzilla, and it has a very interesting set of like things that they've got, and it follows 2 characters who are looking for their dad, who was part of the family that started Monarch, this company. Right. But the thing that's really cool about it is it has 2 time eras. One's in the 40s, 50s, and one is in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And that's the 2 eras that they keep going back and forth between. And there's one character between those 2 eras, and it's played by Kurt Russell in the current era, and his son Wyatt Russell, who looks and sounds just like Kurt Russell in the other era. Yeah. So it's really cool because they keep flipping back and forth, and it's Kurt Russell, and then flip back, and it's unmistakably Kurt Russell in like 1950. Nice.
Well, I guess it was too much to hope it was a Venture Brothers spin-off series.
No,
focusing on
would have been a different thing altogether. But it's on Apple, and it's very good. And we are, of course, also deep into the 5th season of For All Mankind. I think it's the 5th season. Might be the 4th season. I'm getting confused, but it doesn't really matter. We are 1 episode from the end of this season, and things are getting really hot in that show too. Really cool. So we've been really enjoying that as well. I'm just adding that before we go to talk about the people who sponsor us.
3 more minutes. You're going to be out of continuity. You're starting too soon.
Well, there's
do you have something that can waste exactly 2 minutes?
Sure. Like Lauren and I watched more Wayward Pines. Oh. And so it appears that we have the big reveal has occurred. The seasons are only like 10 episodes or so, so we're like episode 6-ish, I think, of season 1. And it seems all right with their reveal and everything. There is some stuff that's really, really dumb about what they decided to do in universe, like in universe, not just like it's like we want to solve this problem, so we're going to do this really dumb thing. I'm like, that's dumb. You're dumb. As so far, it's still enjoyable, but at that point, we're just sort of like, I guess we keep on watching a bit to see what's happening, but we might be close to not watching anymore, just because, like I said, it got a little bit stupid.
It was trying to be Twin Peaks, and they didn't know what they were doing.
Well, yeah. I mean, they take a drastically different tack with it, and so so even though it is not Twin Peaks, though the first episode, especially the first couple episodes, it's like, what the heck is going on? And it does have a lot of that Twin Peaks DNA in it. It is definitely something different. They weren't just trying to ape it.
That's good.
Yeah. Or we could do Twin Peaks just different or better or whatever. They definitely like took some of that DNA, but are doing their own story. To not give too much away, because I don't think it gives too much away. It turns out that it's a very sci-fi story. So
that's good. Well, these guys don't do any aping around.
No, they don't. And you know who those people are? They are the Massage Wizard. And they are Geekway Homes. And I'm waiting for it to come up on screen. And Kieran Games, because I have to like wait for the scroll to get here. And your mom. Just trying to say it a different way, and all I ended up with was just kind of sounding weird.
Yeah,
that's all right.
Good job.
I know. I tried.
That's what you get for trying something new.
Right.
But so we have a new Lord of the Rings movie coming out. Yeah, I've really heard of it. I will probably never watch the Hobbit movies, so I'm not really invested in any more Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah, the only way I found that they work is if you had not seen Lord of the Rings yet.
That's fair.
Because Lord of the Rings sets the bar, and then you watch The Hobbit, and you're like, "What happened?"
Right.
So
Why did we
with,
go backwards?
So with Nick, we're like, we're going to watch The Hobbit first with you, and at any point this is boring you, we'll just stop. And we actually made it through all the Hobbit movies, and he was happy with them. And then we did Lord of the Rings, and he was like, "Wow, this is so amazing!" Because he had it first. He had the bad one, and then the good one, and the bad one didn't seem bad because he didn't have the comparison with it.
I've only seen clips and pieces of the Hobbit movies, and it just looks far too cartoonish to me. And where I was saying John Wick, it's cartoonish with the violence of like, how's this like? For instance, in part 4, John Wick hits somebody in the head with nunchucks like 7 times, and that person keeps fighting. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. But I was like I started seeing very floatiness with Legolas on like collapsing bridges, or some stuff with like the barrel and the rivers and stuff. And I'm like, what is this? This is, and the, I, did I already talk about this a little bit? Like, I don't remember.
I don't think you talked about The Hobbit.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's more along the lines of like CGI in film. Like in Terminator 2 and in even T3, there might be an interview with Arnold in T3 talking about the special effects, and he's basically saying, hey, we have to plan out all our shots meticulously. We have to make sure that it's still a well done scene, and then the team comes in and adds the computer effects, and because things are consistent and good and prepared for, they can really make the computer graphics look realistic. And it seems now that so many movies, and I think I saw like a scene of like a fight from Wakanda Forever, which it was very floaty CGI dolls basically kind of fighting each other. And honestly, it looked only a little bit better than Killer Instinct from like the 90s. I mean, not necessarily the fidelity of it, but like how the action played out. And or even more recent Terminator movies, where like there's like the one where one of the more recent ones, like they have the CGI Arnold Schwarzenegger T-800 bouncing along the highway. I'm like, that shouldn't do that.
Right.
It's like he's like this super heavy metal massive thing covered in flesh that should not act that way.
I really had that problem.
Yeah.
With Aslan in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe too. Like they got a mass problem somewhere along the line.
Yeah, it's just things don't read right to the human eye, and which is really disappointing because of like how it used to be, and how it could be an additive or like used for specific scenes, and now they just sort of fill in everywhere they can. But also, it's like, and I know that the studios that were involved and the production was fraught, but when you watch Across the Spider-Verse, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And all the action reads, and all the action seems like realistic in the way that people are moving or how they're affecting the environment affects them. And like I said, just from an art direction point of view, it's an amazingly beautiful film. One of the commentators I listen to regularly, he actually said, much like saying, we know that that a lot of the people who worked on this were screwed over, but looking at how beautiful this movie is, why do we even bother making movies with real actors anymore when you can make something that looks this good on so many levels?
Right.
And I mean, not that I think that real actors should be replaced. I don't, but I understand the point he's making. It's like, this is a work of art. And how it was done, and how everyone came together to make this, and that's because, but it's also because they didn't decide to make like, let's make CGI cutscenes and who cares? It's like, no, they cared to make it correct, to make it do what they wanted it to do, not just because they had the budget to throw this in and needed to do pickup shots.
Right.
I don't know.
I feel like the Into the Spider-Verse also, it felt to me, the whole series felt to me like it was made by people who love animation. Like they're messing with the frame rates and things like that, which that's stuff that animation geeks would get into. You know what I mean? Like I really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a treat to watch.
Yeah.
So Donald is mentioning how CGI is taking over commercials. I saw a commercial for a minivan or some car, and the woman driving was a real actor, but the kid was CGI.
What?
And it was done in a way to try to look real. And it's like, it took me a second to realize he's CGI, but once I saw it, there was no way to unsee it. And I said to Tara, I'm like, that kid's CGI. And she went, yep, he's CGI'd all right. It's like, but why?
Gollum in the car seat.
My precious man. But yeah, it was really weird. And it's kind of like, did they not want to work with the kid or something?
No kids.
I'm a big fan of the TV series Fargo, and I'm watching it in the latest season. And I don't want to spoil anything, especially because I'm hoping someday the Friday Watch Group will get to it.
Yeah, it's on Hulu, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a car wreck that when they did it, and it involved a pedestrian, I had to go back and watch it again because I was like, that could not have been a stunt because they'd be dead. And I rewatched it, and what it was right up to that last moment before impact, it was green screened, and so the person looked real because it was a real person. Mm-hmm. But it was the moment of right at the impact where they had the car hit where they would have been standing is where they replaced it with a CGI person to take the impact. But just watching it once, it just looked like an amazing crash scene.
We've been watching Vincenzo, which is a Korean film.
Oh yeah,
Korean series.
I remember you telling me about that.
We had the same thing where they're sitting there and the two characters are talking, and then all of a sudden you see the truck come up behind them and then right through the window, and you're watching the actors go, and you're like, whoa! How'd you do all of that? And it's the same thing. It's clearly they did the whole setup and rig, and they've got CGI helping. Mm-hmm. As the characters fly through the air and glass flies everywhere and stuff like that. Really nicely done.
It's a good blend of the two techniques.
Yeah, exactly. An enhancement. I don't watch very many commercials, but I do remember recently seeing like some kind of truck commercial where the truck was pretty obviously CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they wound up doing the truck, and they did normal truck things like, here's this awesome truck driving on the road, and here's the awesome truck climbing up the mountain, here's the truck, and I'm like, that's not a truck climbing, that's a CGI thing. Like I can tell, like they just didn't do it correctly, and it just caught my eye. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it is cheaper to have a CGI truck on the top of that mountain instead of like flying a truck up there to do it.
Yeah,
fair.
Yeah, but you're kind of sitting there going, wait a minute.
That reminds me of, I believe it's the second Lord of the Rings movie, to bring it back to that, is that when they're doing one of the aerial shots of them running across the snow, for a brief moment, you see Legolas like tripping the snow. And you're like, haha, it's not CGI. They actually stuck him out in the mountain and made him run across the snow. And Orlando Bloom had a misstep. And they're like, screw this. We're not redoing this. It's freezing out here.
It's freezing out here, and this is expensive already. And now I love the story about Sean Bean.
Mm-hmm.
They had to helicopter them to the top of mountains to do things, right? And so Sean Bean takes exactly 2 helicopter rides, one up and one down. He's like, I'm never doing that again. And would literally like wake up early, go to makeup, get into his costume, and hike up the freaking mountain. Like the rest of the cast would the rest of the fellowship would be like, there's Sean Bean. He's like trudging along. I'm like, nice.
So Donald, I've seen Rebel Moon. We've seen the first half of the first part, and frankly, we just couldn't stay with it. It was both my buddy James and me, and we started making fun of it, and it just went down from there. The problem, I think, though, is Rebel Moon is trying too hard. And I feel like that it tried so hard, it went the wrong way.
What's the basic setup for it? Because I've only heard about the name of the show mentioned during the before we started role playing.
It is effectively, well, the premise is these people who are on this moon have a farming community, and they're kind of sort of backwater farming community, when the bad guy Imperium shows up and says, we're going to take over your farm. And it turns out that our main character happens to be some kind of super spy sort of character. Right. And she then starts, beating on people and killing the Imperium and stuff like that. It's what it really is it was that Michael Bay really, was it Michael Bay? It was Michael Bay. Michael Bay really wanted to do a Star Wars flick.
Is it Michael Bay?
Is it Michael Bay?
I thought it was Snyder.
As I say,
Snyder.
It's Snyder.
Zack Snyder.
That's okay.
Zack Snyder really wanted to do a Star Wars flick, and they wouldn't let him. So he changed all the names and all the things and everything like that. And then he liked Firefly, so he threw a little bit of Firefly in there. So it's Firefly mixed with Star Wars, with all the names changed to protect the innocent.
Right.
So
it's Duke Air Trotter.
Right.
The Penny Arcade guys, they have a comic and it says, we got to make a Rebel Moon. Rebel Moon is clearly his teenage Star Wars sequel with the serial numbers filed off.
Yep. I mean, it pretty much is. They've even got lightsabers and things like that. And I mean, I'm sure the fact that we had gotten kind of snark about it before we got into it may have colored our opinion of it. But I was having a hard time with it. And I really was. I was having a difficult time with it. I will go back and finish it and probably do it without James, because James was making enough snarky comments that I was like the entire time.
Nice.
So, it was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. So I'll go try to make a better assessment of it.
Our buddy Les said that it feel really close to the worlds that they tried to set up for Warhammer 40K.
Yeah. It's clear that he's influenced by things like Warhammer 40K. It's got a lot of the bad guys, the Imperium bad guys, are very much like the Warhammer 40K Imperium.
It's too bad for people, because laser swords existed before Star Wars in science fiction, but now anyone sees a laser sword, they automatically say that's a ripoff of Star Wars.
Star Wars did it.
Yeah.
Star Wars did it.
Yeah. I don't know.
But the only way they could have guaranteed that I'd watch it is if they stuck Michelle Yeoh in. So.
And that's the thing. The actress that they picked to play the main character is interesting and engaging, and she does a good job. And she looks an awful lot like Natalie Portman. So, I mean, like, there's kind of obviously something going on there in some way, like they're trying to pull that through. And she does a good job of what she's doing. And so, it's kind of, I don't know, I feel kind of bad kind of chewing on it.
It's not we know it's not the actor's fault, but
no, she does an excellent job. In fact, the acting is pretty solid. And of course, the thing that starts turning me off on this is that the spaceship designs aren't very inspired. And that always is sort of a thing I look at. I'm like, do I like these spaceships? Would I want to have a model of these spaceships? And I was like, like Dune, man, I want an ornithopter so bad. Like, those are so cool. And I mean, that's a solid design. And I've seen a number of various interpretations of the Dune ornithopter, but the one in the current movies, I don't know, something about them are just elegant and very lovely. And so I'm willing to put up with a lot of bad from Dune just to watch ornithopters flying around, so but it's each one of us. I mean, that's the thing, right? All three of us have different things we come into and go out of in a movie. But for me, it's a lot on the spaceship design, and I'm not excited about their spaceship design.
Yeah. So speaking of a show, yeah, I will say that there's a new show I haven't watched yet called The Brother's Son, which is supposed to be just a crazy action show. So I'll give a review on that when I finally watch it. But I know it's one of those that when I watch it, I'm going to want to set aside a few hours because I'm not going to be able to watch just one unless it sucks. But but talking about stuff that we've been watching, also on Netflix, there's a show that I recently rewatched the 2 seasons of called Happy. It's based off of a graphic novel. It's gory and violent and ridiculous. It's based on a comic book, so the stuff that there's stuff in it that happens that's just stupid, but it's funny because it's stupid and they know it's stupid and they're kind of tongue in cheek about it. But it's not as grotesque and violent as The Boys, but that's because it was originally done on Sci-Fi and not on Amazon. Had they did it on Amazon, I'm sure they would have done a way more with it. There's like a petition out there to try to get Netflix to buy the rights to it to make season 3, which I don't think it's going to happen unless if the main actor Christopher Maloney decides he wants it to happen. Kind of the way that I'm totally forgetting his name now. Thomas Jane decided he was going to do a 10-minute Punisher movie because he wanted more Punisher. So I remember up here somebody said something about, and I don't know if it was a typo or if it's actually something called Hexagon.
No, Hexagon. It's just Donald reminding us that Hexagon's coming up.
Okay. He said he typed Hexagon, and I assumed he meant Hexacon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did not see the correction. I just wanted to go back and touch on it. Yeah, so Hexagon's coming up.
Yeah, it is. I'm not in on that because it's in the middle of a work weekend for me.
Oh.
So
you're already scheduled for that?
I'm already scheduled. So
Dan will be there running the Heat Masters of the Universe Cool Mini or Not game. So if you're there and you're a fan of Masters of the Universe or miniature battle games, it's not really a miniature battle game. It has miniatures and there's battle, but it's cooperative the way that Zombicide's cooperative. I think. So Dan will basically be playing the bad guys. I never was a He-Man fan, so
He-Man. Okay, sorry.
Oh, did any of y'all ever watch the I guess not the He-Man sequel? I think maybe we talked about that. I'm sorry. Like
I remember us having a discussion about it at one point in time. I never got to see it for whatever reason. I feel like I was going to, and then we killed Netflix in our house or something like that. Yep, you don't need a parachute to go skydiving. You need a parachute to go skydiving twice. So, yeah, I don't know. That seems like but I was gonna watch it because I remember, was it you, Alex, that saw it?
Yeah, I saw it, and I thought it was pretty good. One of my biggest complaints was that Mark Hamill plays Skeletor, and it's very, very Joker. His portrayal of Skeletor, and I found that annoying.
I remember you saying that before.
Yeah, but I liked it. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we had touched on it in the past but I didn't. I couldn't remember. So
I was just wondering. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other stuff. Well, it's too bad you're not going to make it to Hexacon. I'm sure there would have been plastic spaceships involved.
Right? I would have totally been in on that. Kind of a bummer.
Okay, and Brent was mentioning that the main female character from Rebel Moon was the villainess in Kingsman, which I don't know if you've seen Kingsman or not.
I have not seen it yet.
So I liked a lot about Kingsman up to the point to where they basically set dressed the female protagonist who should have taken more of a center stage, and they did it because she wasn't the main character, but everything that's set up to that point, she should have become the main character They instead task her with this thing that ends up having no effect on what happens anyway, and it was just wasted time. And that aspect of it really, I couldn't let go, and it just kept bothering me during the last big action sequence and stuff, where it's like, yeah, she should have been in there instead of him because she passed all the tests.
Right.
But besides that, I enjoyed the concept of it, and it was fun in that way. And the sequel was okay. I don't feel like I wasted my time watching it, but I don't know if I could recommend it necessarily. But yeah, I haven't heard anything about any further James Bond movies, but we know that Last Guy has retired from it. So. But yeah, I guess they haven't actually said it's going to be her, because the last one was No Time to Die. And they set up a female character to be the one who probably should be taking over for James Bond, but
Black woman.
Yeah, and all the white people freaked out. You can't make James Bond a black woman.
We didn't. We made 007
Seven.
Black woman.
That's right. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away because I haven't even watched the new season yet of Doctor Who, but apparently there's a lot of complaining about the new Doctor being who the new Doctor is. So I don't want to say anything in case people like that surprise of seeing who the new Doctor is going to be when they get to that point. Man. Gosh. What else do we have going on? Oh, my kid's school's actually going to be using D&D as one of the classes for math. And when I heard about it, because one of my kiddos was like, I really want in this class, but they didn't put me in it. I'm like, well, did you ask? And of course he didn't because he's shy. So I went in and said, hey, he'd really like to be in this. Is there a way to rearrange his schedule? And they're like, yeah, we could totally do that. I'm like, cool. And if you need any help, they're like, yes, please. So next week, Thursday and Friday, I'm going to be going in and guest GMing. And I told him, you really should ask if any of the kids are interested in learning to GM, because you're short on people to run games. And once you get over 5 players, it starts to get chaotic, especially with kids. You'd be better off breaking them into groups of 4 or 5, with one of them being a designated DM and running their own game, kind of thing, and just sort of supervising it instead of trying to get 4 or 5 adults to run the games.
Right.
But I think that's really cool, and it's going to be fun. And I told her about our house rule thing. I don't know if this was used somewhere else and you got it from somewhere else, Alex, or if something we came up with at our place, but the social initiative.
Oh yeah.
As I was explaining it, and she's like, that's a really good idea, because a lot of times some people talk over other people and some people are too shy to interrupt, and this gives everybody at least an opportunity to have center stage and say something.
Yeah.
And since we have time, for those who aren't watching and play D&D, social initiative is when you're out of combat and you're trying to keep an order of people talking. You have everybody row, add their charisma bonus to it, and that's the order in which you go through for the conversation.
Right.
Which is funny that Ivy is so high on the social initiative.
She just has to make a snide comment first.
Yeah.
Before everybody does anything. That's all. It is kind of funny, though.
So there's a new D&D-esque show on Netflix I've watched the first 10 minutes of. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it's called like Dungeon Cooking or Dungeon Dining.
Oh yeah, I saw that. It was like it's animated and it's like they're adventurers, but they also do a lot of cooking.
Yeah, so within the first 10 minutes, I can tell you what happens. It's as clearly people who play D&D, but the group ends up. It starts off with them in a really bad situation, and they get away from it, but they need to go back into the bad situation, but they've used up all their resources. And they're like, well, we don't have enough money to buy enough gear and stuff to replenish our supplies to go back in and do a rescue. What are we going to do? And the main character's like, okay, here's what we do. You guys need to sell all your gear. well, first thing they think of is let's everybody sell our gear and get less gear and then have supplies. And they're like, but we couldn't win with the good gear. We're not going to win with less gear. And the other guy's like, okay, well, you two sell your stuff and I'll go in by myself with supplies and you guys just hang out in town. And they're like, we're not going to let you do that. And it's like, well, how are we going to eat? And then one of the guys decides, okay, look, there's a whole ecosystem in the dungeon because that monsters live there. So there has to be plants growing and creatures. We just need to figure out which monsters and plants we can eat. And we'll just feed ourselves as we go through the dungeon on the creatures we kill. And so that's the setup and the plot for it. It's cute. Guy would be happy to know that it's in its original Japanese, so you can watch it that way if you wish.
I do.
If you don't like that and you like things that are dubbed instead, you can also watch it dubbed in English. But I only got to the halfway point and had to stop because of time. But I plan on going back and checking it out.
Okay.
Some more, but it's cute.
Yeah.
How do you cook an orc? I see.
Orc cooking is one of those rare things.
Mm-hmm.
Gross.
Well, if you undercook
Cooking sentient beings.
If you undercook orc, you get trichinosis. So. Or that's pork.
It's pork,
not orc. Oh, man, but yeah, that's there.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's like Nova and I have been watching more Bob's Burgers and
I can't watch that without thinking of him as Archer.
I know. Well, I mean, if you watch enough Archer, there's a Bob's Burger crossover to Archer.
Yeah,
right.
It was very funny.
Yeah, like I did take a break from my watching of Archer to watch, John Wick and now Sandman again on the disc and all that. So I'll go back to Archer in a little bit. It's just, I don't know. Just Archer's one of those shows I can watch a whole lot of, but it's probably good to break it up at least a little bit. So. But yeah, no, totally. And of course we were watching both shows at the time when the Bob's Burger crossover came out. So we're like, this is awesome. Yeah.
It's a thing.
Like a lot of voice actors, it's funny how much he does not look at all like Archer.
I know, right?
And he's the we got the meats voice for Arby's.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the other stuff. I mean, we only have a few minutes left, but I'm rereading Transmetropolitan, as is my wont. Whenever it's a main election year, so every 4 years I read Transmet.
There you go.
And the ending's very good. They stuck it. Very cool. I'm here for that. I'm glad to hear that. So that's cool.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you want more, which
is
a good way to end. You don't want something to end and feel like it's incomplete
I also Troy. I have stopped watching Legion for a bit. I'm in season 2.
Okay,
but I made the mistake of watching Legion while I was like in the depths of COVID.
Oh no!
So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna not watch this for a little bit. Just tired and feverish and delusional enough to be like.
I don't need no demons coming in my house.
No, thank you. I need to have good boundaries while watching this.
Right.
So.
I will say that bouncing that to Fargo, with each season, the bad guy gets more and more hard to watch because of how bad they are.
Right.
And it's interesting, and going back and rewatching them and seeing them together as opposed to waiting a whole season to catch the next bad guy and compare them. It's interesting how they go with it, and but yeah, that's
that escalation again.
Do a whole class on Fargo.
Yeah, cool.
Well, I almost called you up today, Guy, because I was gonna end up in your neighborhood and not know what to do, but I went ahead and changed my mind and came back home.
That's all right. I wasn't here, so
the roads were bad.
I do know we only have a moment left, but it's
go for it.
Spy Kids is on Netflix until the 12th. I've never actually seen them.
Oh.
And so I saw that it was leaving. I'm like, these are decent. You're right. And I like Robert Rodriguez. And so we've watched the first 2 and enjoyed them.
Yeah, they're not bad.
And so we'll watch the third one. And then of course the other stuff is like Netflix has got for longer. So, but I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And I mean, of course, like as with most kids stuff, there's jokes for adults. Plus, you have early aughts Antonio Banderas and Carla Gugino, who are both very attractive people. So good to watch them too.
Apparently,
yeah.
the idea was based off of his short he did for 4 Rooms with those two
Right.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's which they're not at all the same kind of kids in the movie,
No.
but yeah, it's definitely fun. I
Yeah.
don't know if I got past 2. I don't know if I saw 3 or 4, but I definitely saw 1 and 2 because I really like those.
Yeah. So we've watched the first 2. They have 3. I didn't know there was a 4 because I know that he did like the Shark Boy and Lava Girl stuff.
Yeah, but I don't think they're connected.
Nah, I don't know. So then there's also a there's an animated TV show that's on Netflix. That's with the original Spy Kids as kids animated, and there's also another movie, but it's a different set of kids, I think. Another movie, or maybe even 2. I don't recall.
I wonder if it's easier to accept some of these shows when you have a kid, so then you're not feeling like, oh, I'm watching a kid's show, I shouldn't be doing that, but rather you watch with the kid, and then you're like, no, this isn't so bad. You know what I mean? Like, gives them access point.
I didn't have a kid when I saw it because it came out in 2001,
right?
Yeah,
and I liked it, but I was a big Rodriguez fan already, so.
So I think we might actually have our topic, or at least part of our topic, for next episode.
Is shows different as a parent?
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
Because of course, that's unfortunately all the time we have for today.
Go draw some Spy Kids.
I have to go draw some Spy Kids. Wait, what? Thank you for joining us, Donald. Thank you for joining us, Brent. And it's been wonderful having you guys here. And as always, thank you all who are out there, but of course are lurking, which is totally cool.
Lurkers.
That is, in fact, all the time we have for today. I've been Guy.
I've been Troy.
And I've been Alex.
And this is Geek Tank.